Welcome to the Buick Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Sheldon Marion, and on this podcast, we dive deep into the outdoors. We discuss hunting and fishing techniques, give you tips and tricks, tell stories, and everything in between to help you enjoy the outdoors. This podcast is brought to you by Northbound Gear. Northbound Gear is designed for maneuverability and durability and is made to last through even the toughest of elements. My go-to for their pants is the water resistance adventure pants and their lined waterproof jeans. I've worn them while out ice fishing, crawling through the woods bear hunting, and on the west coast out on the boat. And I even wear them around when I'm having a lazy day at the house. They are that comfortable. They also offer jackets, summer pants, backpacks, and many more. Men's and women's sizes are available, and by partnering with One Tree Planted, you're planting a tree with every purchase. Check them out for yourself at northboundgear.co, and when you use my promo code Sheldon15 at checkout, you'll receive 15% off your order. That's northboundgear.co and promo code Sheldon15. Well, you guys, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's already August. For us here up in the north, that typically means it's the start of fall. We could be getting frost any day now, and man, I gotta start making my plans here for September. I have 3 weeks off coming up here, fairly soon. And I gotta get my stuff together and make a plan on where I'm gonna go and what I'm gonna hunt. But August, it's always been kind of like a trip down memory lane for me. When I was a kid, the entire Marion family used to all gather up at mile 135 for kind of like our annual moose hunting trip. It was kind of like a moose hunting trip and family reunion, kind of all put together as one little package. We never called it a family reunion, but man, pretty well everyone was there. All of the uncles and cousins and stuff from Dawson would come up. The family around Fort St. John would all go up there. And we'd all park at one of the big gravel pits there. And we'd all have our campers and holiday trailers, and kids would set up tents and stuff. And man, it was always a fun time going up there. I don't think you could talk to any of the Marions without them having, some memory of mile 135 and the old spring, and just moose hunting in general. We're a very, very hunter focused family, and everybody would get together and we'd all hunt together. And we all have stories out there. For me, one of my favorite stories is Uncle Joe. He was always known for kind of driving a little quick down the back roads. So every once in a while, we'd like to pick on him. The one time I was hunting with him, and he was just cooking her down the road, and we went past the pipeline, and I just yelled out, "Moose!" As soon as I said that, he dynamited the brakes, and he was trying to find reverse in his truck, and he was just grinding gears, and he finally got slowed up enough where it kind of slammed into reverse, and then he pinned her, and he started screaming her going backwards, and we get back to the pipeline and back onto the brakes, and he's grinding to a halt. Now he's trying to find park, and again he's just grinding the gears, his old Ford transmission there, and finally finds park, and the big cloud of dust comes up, and the truck's rocking back and forth, and he's trying to get out of the truck. The funny thing was, there wasn't no moose there. We just like to kind of tease him once in a while, and he'd get out and he'd be looking around, and oh no, sorry Joe, moose must have ran off. Oh man, it was always so much fun heading out there, and ever since I was just a tiny little kid, we'd go out there. I remember me running around with the axe. They'd go out, they'd cut firewood, they'd bring it back, and I'd just split firewood for hours at a time. One time too, I can't remember what uncle it was, but they took an empty oil jug and they just cut like a rectangle out of the side of it, and we haywired it or zap strapped it or whatever onto my bike. So when the little plastic was in the spoke of my wheel, so I'd be pedaling that thing around camp, thinking I was a dirt bike or something like that. And it's pretty neat when it's not even an individual memory, it's like family memories of just one certain area like that. I, you know, it, even today, if you go back there, you can still go to the gravel pit, and man, every time you go there, you just kind of smile and laugh and look back at past stories and stuff. And then, with it being August now too, it's pretty well going to be the start of berry picking season. That's one thing that we used to do out there at 135 as well, is in the afternoons we'd go out and we'd pick huckleberries and blueberries. And with huckleberries and blueberries, typically when we'd pick them is kind of between like August 15th and August 20th kind of time. Frost usually hits them once or twice by then, and they're nice and ripe. Once the frost hits them, they tend to be a bit sweeter. I don't know what it does to the sugars in them, but it seems to help them out a little bit. I want to say we were picking low bush cranberries around the same time too. The only with low bush cranberries is I haven't picked them things in years, so yeah, I don't quite remember when we picked them. I know high bush cranberries, that's in September, after they've been hit with frost quite a few times. But yeah, with the berries too, with huckleberries or blueberries, there's so much stuff that you can make with them. One of the things that we used to always make is we'd go out and we'd pick like a gallon of berries, and we'd bring them back, and the next morning we'd have like huckleberry pancakes. You just, while you're making your Aunt Jemima pancake mix, just grab a handful or two of berries, throw them into your mix there, and throw that onto the hot pan, and man, they were just phenomenal. Another good one to do is you take your berries, throw them into a bowl, and you put a bunch of sugar on them, and you just kind of stir it up a little bit, throw that into your fridge, let it sweat, and then the sugar kind of soaks it all up. And you take that out, and you spoon it onto like angel food cake, and put a little whipped cream or ice cream on there, and man, that's phenomenal. The other thing too, ice cream. Again, just a handful of berries, throw it into your vanilla ice cream, mix it all up, and throw it down the hatch, and boy, is it ever good. You can buy blueberries from the store all day long, and they taste alright, but nothing tastes better than just a hand-picked wild blueberry or huckleberry that you went out and you gathered, and man, it is so much better. Now too, with it being in August, the rivers should be clean by now. If they're not, it's mainly just because there's been like a fresh rainfall. Some years the snowpack out in the mountains, it's a lot deeper and thicker and takes longer to melt than other years. This year's one of those years. There was a ton of snow in the mountains, so June and July it was pretty hit and miss for most rivers around here. But now that we've made it through a heat wave that should have nuked the majority of the rest of the snow off the mountaintops, and pretty well just in time for new snow to start hitting up there now. But yeah, the rivers, they should be nice and clean now. Some of the rivers around Fort St. John area, I don't think you could work or live up here without somebody mentioning, like the Peace, the Halfway, the Graham, or the Chewati. Uh, we also have like the Murray and the Pine. Uh, those are basically your main rivers that everybody fishes around here. And depending on the spots of the rivers that you go to, it seems like the ones that are right off the side of the road, they've been all kind of fished out, kind of a thing. But typically, it seems like now you have to kind of hike a little ways to find a good fishing hole. Uh, but I mean, it's all worth it once as you see just like the amount of fish that you can catch. Uh, for us up here, we have bull trout, rainbow, grayling, whitefish. Uh, there might be some in canoe, kind of a thing. That's kind of a newish one. And then also kokanee. With kokanee though, they're mainly in the Peace River. You can also find lake trout in the Peace River. And in certain spots, there is jackfish or northern pike and walleye in the Peace. If you're going to be in like the Halfway, Graham, Chewati, you're mainly looking at the bull trout for the majority of the fish that you're going to catch. There is still some rainbows. There can be some good grayling, and typically there's quite a bit of whitefish too. They seem to be a pretty strong fish for whatever reason. I think the rainbows though. I think there was a study that I was reading that like if the temperature of the water comes up by like even like 2 degrees, it can kind of kill off some of the rainbow because they're pretty sensitive up here. But yeah, this summer though it hasn't been overly too hot. We did just have a heat wave, but it was 4 days of hot weather, and yeah, so I think the fishing in the rivers this year will be pretty good. Uh, if you're gonna be heading out to, I've grown up in this area my entire life, and pretty well, if I only had a handful of hooks to go to the river, it would be like a crocodile spoon, size number 2, with rainbow trout pattern on it. A blue and silver spoon, again, size 2. Maybe size 3 if you're going after the lake trout and big bull trout. And other than that, I'd have a couple Panther Martin spinners, a couple of MEP spinners, and with those, depending on what you're going after, I'd want like the size 1, and with the MEPs, sometimes it's the black one, sometimes it's the red one, sometimes it's just the silver one. It's good to have a little assortment of MEPs. For Panther Martins, the little yellow ones seem to work pretty good, or the silver ones. Same thing with the Panther Martin or the MEPs. You can get them with a little bit of hair on the end of the treble hook. The only thing is, you have to check regulations. I'm pretty sure in the streams it has to be a single barbless hook. So with those ones, you'll probably have to yank those hooks off. Or what you can do is you can take your pliers and you can cut the other 2 hooks off of the treble, and then just smash down the barb on the single hook that's left. For the most part, it is a single barbless hook in that sense, so you shouldn't have any issues with the game warden with that. I've been checked several times now, and that's what I've always done in the past. If the hook comes with the treble, you can slide the body of your spinner up, and then a little arm bracket kind of pops out, and then you can take your hook off that way. It's a bit of a pain, and it's extremely tight quarters in there, especially like those little zeros and size 1s. even the size 2 spinners are still pretty small to do it. So for us, or for me anyways, I've always just said the heck with it and just took my pliers and just cut the 2 hooks off. And yeah, I've never had any issues with it at all. Also up here in the streams, you can't use any bait. So yeah, if you're wanting to use like worms or shrimp or corn, you can't. You can do it in lakes, but not in the streams up here. And other than that, for hooks, if you're a fly fisherman, I would mainly stick to dry flies. I've had some luck with like little nymphs and stuff like that, but for the most part, the dry flies that I would use is like the elk hair or deer hair caddis. What are the other ones there? Chronomids, they're not a dry fly. Mosquitoes, Adams, Royal Wolf, or Royal Coachman. It's kind of the same thing. Royal Wolf and Royal Coachman, the only difference is the Coachman has like the 2 little white wings coming up, and that's about it. And yeah, you go out onto the rivers with some of them, and man, I'm telling you, you can fish all day long with just that handful of hooks, and you'll catch a pile of fish. One thing that's really fun to do is to fly fish for the bull trout just before they spawn. And again, that's another August thing. Again, though, you have to watch your regulations for that. There's a lot of places where they close the river at certain spots for the bull trout spawning. And unfortunately, it usually goes by bridges. So you got to be mindful of that. And, worst case scenario, just call up the conservation officers and just kind of ask them, like, hey, I want to fish this river at this time. Where is it open, or if there's any closures or anything like that. Especially now with this day and age of the internet, there can be times where they close something or adjust certain rules halfway through the season, and it's up to you to go online and check the website, which I don't like at all. I think what's written in the book should be cemented in the book. It's for 2 years. Just let it be what's be, kind of a thing. But unfortunately, that's not how it goes some years. So yeah, just once in a while, go onto their website and check out, make sure that there's no new regulations or anything like that. Also, speaking about regulations, if you're new to hunting and fishing, especially fishing here, now that we're talking about it, you really have to know your regulations. There's like the general limits that you're allowed to catch. If you're going fishing in a spot that's not listed below like the general regulations, then you go off of the general regulations. So say you're allowed to catch 5 rainbows. If you're going fishing in, say, the Peace, you look down the Peace River, it might say that you're only allowed 2 rainbows. Or some rivers might say that this fish has to be over 25 centimeters, smaller than 30 or something, whatever it is. I'm just making up numbers, right? But you really have to be careful and be mindful of where it is that you're fishing, what the rules are, because there's so many times where you misread something once and then you just have it locked in your head. Yeah, this is what we're allowed, when really maybe you got things backwards. Maybe you read that the fish has to be, between these 2 sizes to keep, when really what it says is it has to be either smaller or bigger than this size. So, like, in your mind, you're being legal by keeping one that's bigger than 25, smaller than 30, when really the regulation says you can only keep them if they're below 25 or higher than 30, kind of a thing. So you just gotta pay attention, read things twice, read things three times, highlight it, whatever it is that you gotta do, because nobody wants a ticket and to have your stuff taken away and whatever comes from that stuff. So when you're going fishing in the rivers, you know, a lot of people when they go fishing, they just grab the hook, throw it in the water, reel it in, and that's just how they fish. Uh, but if you want to get more in depth, you have to think of how some of these fish act. When it comes to like the bull trout and the rainbows, they're like a predator fish. Then when it comes to like the grayling and the whitefish, they are a bit of a predator fish, but not as aggressive as like the bull trout and the rainbow. Uh, the bull trout, a lot of times what they do is they hide under structures. So like any falling down trees or big boulders and rocks and stuff. Uh, a lot of times they sit there in kind of like the calm water. You'll see, especially, it's really easy to see on big boulders because the river kind of comes, it hits that rock, and it almost makes like a teardrop kind of a thing there. And on the backside of that teardrop, or the backside of the rock, it's a little calm spot. So they're able to sit there and barely move, and they keep a lot of their energy. It doesn't take much for them just to kind of sit there and hang out. And they just wait till something kind of comes on one side of the rock, and then they're able to jolt out and grab that as like a predator fish. So a lot of times, if I'm using like that crocodile number 2, I'll cast it upstream away from me, and then hopefully the river's clean enough where you can actually see your hook. And I'll try to time it right where as I'm reeling it in, as that hook is going past me, it's going on the my side of the rock. If it's on the other side, there's a good chance your fishing line can get hooked up and all that junk, and you end up losing your good hook. But I try to time it right where as that hook is just coming past that rock, it's just starting to swing out and face kind of downriver and then into the current. So in that way, if a bull trout is sitting there or a big rainbow, as that hook is coming down through the fast water, it hits the end of my line and turns and it starts to flutter right before that rock or just after. And then what that kind of looks like is a small little bait fish is coming in who's been fighting the current, and he's tired as hell and he's ready to get into that calm water. And once he turns and it flutters, it looks like that little bait fish is going to come over, and that's when that dolly or the big rainbow is going to come out of that calm water, and they always attack kind of from the tail end. And it's a great way to catch some rainbows and bull trout. I do the same thing when I see logs too. The problem with logs though is you don't exactly know where they're sitting in the water. A lot of times they could be just kind of toppled over and kind of half floating. So it's the risk of you losing your hook because you're getting snagged up on the trees or there's branches and stuff. The risk is a little bit higher. But man, is there ever some amazing fishing at like the base of a big log jam or just a big fallen down spruce tree or something like that. And it's not just the bull trout and rainbows that sit there. The grayling and the whitefish, they hang out in those calm waters too. A lot of times, with the spinner, I'll do the same thing. Toss the spinner upstream as it comes down. You watch it kind of swing into that calm water, and then you bring it back up through it. And it works phenomenal. With the dry flies, I kind of do the same thing, except with dry flies, what I'll do is I won't stand kind of beside the rock. I'll go downstream of the rock or the structure, the trees, whatever it is that you're targeting. And again, I'll cast way upstream, and then what I'll do is as it's coming in, you just slowly pull in your line, and it's not you don't have any slack line in the water, and then that way if a fish does grab it, you're right there. You don't have to sit there and pulling a bunch of loose line. And then what ends up happening is it kind of just floats around. It hits that calm water. Sometimes it does a little bit of a swirl kind of a thing, and then your fly line will get into that faster water, and it'll pull it out again. And then sometimes too, if you can't quite cast far enough with the fly rod, what you can do is you cast as far as you can, and then you have a bunch of loose fly line at your feet, and as that current grabs your fly line, just sit there and feed it out. So if you can only cast like 15 yards, there's no reason why you still can't get 20 yards out, because you get your 10 yards of line out, and then as that current grabs your line, you just sit there and you just kind of hand feed it. Just kind of push it out, and that river current will take your fly line and it'll just keep pulling it downstream, and it works pretty well. It's a little like cheating, but that's alright. At the end of the day, you should be able to catch fish. Also, don't be afraid to put a fly on your regular spinning cast rod and just have a bobber. When it comes to bobbers, what I like to do when I'm on the river, especially when you're using dry flies, is I just grab it wherever my fly is. I go one arm length like this, whatever that is, 5 feet, and that's where I put my bobber. And when I cast it out there, once the bobber hits the water, I tighten up my line and I give it just a little pull, because every once in a while what ends up happening is when you cast out, your bobber is actually what's taking the line out. So then it almost creates like a real sharp V. You have your main line going out to the bobber, and then from the bobber coming back towards you is where your fly line or your fly is going to be. So if you don't kind of give that little bit of a jerk and pull your bobber back, your fly itself could be on top of your fishing line, or it could be just kind of bundled up in a big pile of crap beside your bobber kind of a thing. And not only does it not look good for the fish, if you do happen to get a fish to bite, there's so much slack and stuff like that, there's a really good chance that you're going to miss setting the hook. And if you don't set the hook, so it has to be single barbless, you're most likely going to lose the fish. But just little tips and tricks like that kind of go a long way, so that's why I like telling you guys about that. With Chronomids, I mentioned those earlier. Basically what a Chronomid is kind of like the larvae of a new hatch coming up. So typically, like when I was tying Chronomids, I'd use like a size 14 or a size 12 hook. The only downside to that is you can really only get like 6-pound test to go through the eye of those tiny little hooks. So I started experimenting a little bit, and I could tie size 10, and I tried size 8 a couple of times, but that seemed just way too big. But even the size 10, you can still get about 8 to 10-pound test through the eye of those hooks. And then with those, typically what it is you have just a very simple body on it. Some it's peacock feathers, some it's wire. For me, I used either silver or gold tinsel, and I wrapped that around, and then at the very tip top, right at the eye of the hook, there was just like one little copper bead there, and basically it just goes in, sits in the water right so close to the bottom, like it'll be like an inch off the bottom. And I think the only reason why it doesn't really run on the ground is because your fly line has enough momentum where it's keeping it just above the bottom. And that's where, if you're using a bobber, I don't know if I'd use like the 5-foot rule, whatever, just like the big arm length of line. You'd want to know roughly how deep the river is. So even then, instead of being, a full arm length, put like half an arm length. So like, whatever, 2.5 feet kind of a thing. It should work. For me, I haven't really used Chronomids all that much with just a regular spin cast rod and reel. I've always used them with my fly rod. Uh, but as long as your bobber is whatever 2 feet away from your hook, it shouldn't really make a difference when it comes to Chronomids. Uh, and they work phenomenally well with Chronomids. There's so many different types out there. Uh, Basically, I've always had good luck with the gold ones. It's just like gold tinsel with a gold bead, or not gold bead, but it's copper, brass, whatever it is. They've always seemed to work extremely well for grayling and whitefish. Uh, the gray Adams too. They work phenomenal for grayling. One thing, if you are going to be going after grayling and whitefish, is you have to remember that their mouths are extremely small for their body size. Uh, Rainbows, they have the predator mouth. So their mouth is kind of like the whole V of their nose is their mouth. Where when it comes to like the whitefish and the grayling, it's like the tip of their mouth and it's just like a small little hole. So they don't have like great big jaws. They kind of have lips, and that's about it. So when they come up and they grab a fly off the tip of the water, they're not opening their mouth and chomping on it. They're kind of opening up their mouth and sucking it in, kind of a thing. So that's why when you're picking the size of your fly, uh, I would really stick to around like size 10 as being the biggest hook. Size 8, if you're going after rainbow, will work. But if you're going after the grayling and whitefish, size 10 is about the max you'd want to do. But that's also why I started tying size 12s and size 14s. They are so incredibly small and they are extremely hard to tie. But if you're not tying them yourself, a size 14 still costs $1.25 or whatever the price is now. Uh, as it would, it's the same price as one of the bigger ones. And the only issue with that though is that the eyes of those hooks, like I said, are extremely small. So if you don't have like 6 pound test, if you have well, even if you have 10 pound test on your rod, you can always just grab 6 pound line and just do like a 8 foot leader on there. You just tie the two lines together. Uh, but if you have bad eyesight, it'll be pretty hard for you to see just to get your line in through there. So yeah, it's kind of hit and miss. That's why I kind of tell people, stick to like size 10. It's kind of a good little ground. Uh, and again, like the size 10, you can use a lot of different size tests for that. You can catch the big rainbows, but you can also catch the grayling and whitefish with that size too. Seeing how I'm talking a bunch about fly fishing and flies, if you're curious to know like what it takes to get into tying your own flies, uh, what I would recommend and suggest is just to buy a basic fly tying kit. Uh, they range anywhere from like, I want to say the lower end, probably $80 to $100, $150 kind of thing. But it comes with the vise for to hold your hook. Typically comes with the whatever, maybe 20 hooks, kind of size 8, kind of a size. Comes with your bobbin, some thread. I think it'll come with the knot maker or knot tire. It's a weird hook looking thing. It once as you see it, you'll understand why I call it a weird hook looking thing, because it's it's funky. It'll come with a little bit of head cement or just glue, super glue. And then also it'll come with basic stuff so you can make something like a Royal Coachman. It'll come with a little bit of deer hair, some peacock feathers. Usually with the thread, they'll set you up with a couple different colors. Mainly it'll be like two things of black, 'cause that's typically what you use. maybe one red and one brown kind of a thing. And then some of them come with some of that tinsel. Some come with a couple of beads, and some come with like the lead heads. They're like kind of lead eyes for woolly buggers. But yeah, a lot of times too they come with like a small little pamphlet, almost like a quad fold or a little booklet, and they'll tell you how to make whatever 4 or 5 basic hooks kind of thing. And then if you can't figure it out with that book, go on to YouTube and just search how to tie a fly, how to tie a mosquito, how to tie a Royal Coachman, Adams, a woolly bugger. Woolly buggers are another phenomenal fly. And then also, if you start tying your own woolly buggers, it's marabou tail, or no, rabbit fur tail with marabou body, and then a black feather that's wrapped around too. And then what I would do is I would take like a bead or one of those lead eyes, and I put it right at the very top. Then that way when you strip it in, instead of it just kind of floating through the water, you get a lot of action, and it looks so much better. And with them too, depending on how long you make the tail and what colors that you use, it looks just like a black leech going through the water. And even in the rivers, I don't think I've ever heard of somebody getting a leech in a river, but even in the rivers, they work phenomenally well. But yeah, that's just my kind of 2 cents on that. But anyways, yeah, I hope you guys are getting kind of fired up here for this fall. I know I am. Chicken season, it's right around the corner. That opens up in September. Rabbit season is here. That opened up August 1st for us up here. Unfortunately, I go back to work for a week, and then on my next days off, I'm busy with my brother's wedding and all that stuff. So I'm not going to be able to hunt any rabbits right away. But very, very soon coming up here, I'll be hunting like crazy. Like I said, I got 3 weeks off in September here coming up. And so yeah, that's going to be a blast. I'm going to be taking the holiday trailer out again, spend 3 weeks out some back road somewhere, and basically going to be hunting chickens every day and hunting rabbits every day. And I'll be doing a bunch of cooking as usual. I think this year I'm going to try something a little different, and with the rabbits that I shoot, I'll freeze some of them whole. Not too many, probably 1 or 2. And then a lot of the other ones, beside like campfire cooking and all that, I'm going to try to grind some of them up with a little bit of pork fat and make some sort of a sausage with it. Or, well, I got black bear pepperoni, so I don't need to make any more pepperoni. But, yeah, maybe like a garlic sausage or a bratwurst, or I don't know, heck, maybe even jalapeno cheddar or rabbit and pork sausage. I don't know. It might taste good, it might not. I'm not too sure, but that's all part of the fun of being an outdoorsman and a hunter and all that good stuff. You have the equipment and you somewhat have the knowledge. It's such a blast to be able to go out and harvest these animals and provide for your family and friends, and just provide for yourself. And yeah, you're able to mess around a little bit and give her a try. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, please give us a rating and a review where you're listening to it. If you're watching on YouTube, please like the video, leave us a comment or 2. Definitely subscribe to our channel. Every day we're growing a little bit more and more. Just recently I've been able to put up super thanks. So if you want to say thank you, it's a one-time little deal that you can do. I think it's like $1, $5, $10 or something like that you can kind of donate directly to us, and that helps us just a lot. Every little bit helps. There's also the membership that just came out now. I think that's $5 a month. And again, that the membership, it helps us out grow. I got cameras and microphones, computers, laptops, gas, bullets, guns. There's a lot more to this than just kind of throwing on a camera and throwing things together kind of thing. So any little bit helps. Also, the merchandise is now up on our YouTube channel as well. So if you don't want to go to our online store through our Facebook page, you can get to the online store now through the YouTube channels. But anyways, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. And even with me blabbering on about how to support the channel, if you don't want to pay for anything, just don't pay for anything. Just enjoy the content, watch the videos, listen to the podcast, tell your friends about it, subscribe to the channel, and that alone is plenty from you guys. So again, if you do want to help support the channel, I do really appreciate it, but I'm not gonna really ask you to do it. That's 100% up to you. But anyways, guys, I gotta wrap this up. I gotta get out of here, and I gotta go to work. So, that's all. See you on the next one.